joining us today, having this conversation with General Mugisha Muntu. Happy New Year to all of you. I know this is the first one. Today is the 13th of January 2023. I hope you had a very festive season there. And also, as we get into this discussion with the General, we'll be looking at different facets of the discussion. Please be part of the conversation. Just go and drop your messages, either if you're on Zoom or you're on Spaces, just drop your messages there and we'll be able to get and engage in those and everything there. But just to give you perspective of where our discussion is going to be, we'll be looking at 2022. We'll also be looking at 2023, but we'll focus first and foremost on Alliance for National Transformation. What has it achieved last year? What does it hope to achieve this year? We'll also go ahead to discuss Honorable Alisa Lasso, who is running as a member of parliament for Serere County there. We'll talk about the road carnage, economic recovery, the budget, and then we'll look at the region. So that's the perspective of our discussion today. And everyone that has joined us, thank you very much for coming through. I'll let the General get to introduce himself, and then we'll get to it. Good evening, General. How are you? And Happy New Year.
Good evening, Timothy. Happy New Year. Yeah, we survived 2022. It was a tough year. By God's grace, we are now in 2023. And we'll continue the struggle to set ourselves free as a people.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, General. And we thank God that we made it through 2022, and 2023 looks very hopeful. So let's begin, you and I. What has the Alliance for National Transformation achieved in 2022 that we can be able to account to what the party has done, especially progressing forward?
2022, we concentrated on two things, basically. Training of our leaders, those who were elected, the councillors and the local government leaders mostly, and also continued with our main effort, which has always been establishing ourselves at the grassroots level. We toured a number of districts, worked on engagements with the Women League to establish women leaders in a number of districts, as well as the Youth League and the mainstream party branches. The districts we went to were operating at the sub-county level. And of course, other than engaging through media to publicize the party. Mostly that's what we were concentrating on. And we also continued working on fundraisings, because all the efforts the party is conducting are all hinged on the extent to which we are able to mobilize the resources.
Interesting. Thank you, General. And I see your focus was really to bring the party down to the grassroots. You also focused on how the party is in the media and speaking about national issues and also regional or international issues and fundraising. If you could give us some numbers, how many districts were you able to visit? How many sub-counties were you able to visit? How many leaders were you able to train? But also in terms of financing, how is Alliance for National Transformation doing right now?
We don't have many leaders yet who are elected, so we concentrated on those who made it in the 2021 elections, who are 50, the highest of them being an LC5 chairperson of Terego, and the councillors below, LC5, LC3, and 1 or 2 mayors, like the one of Sembatia. And then we went through all the sub-counties of Terego, visited sub-county by sub-county, and the townships within Terego. Then we visited 2 sub-counties in Vura, visited 2 in Aivu, And then we did women's engagement in 2 of them in Nuoya. And then in Gulu, we did 1 women's engagement. Soroti, we visited all the 10 sub-counties of Soroti, except the city. We didn't go to the city. And then Mayuge, we toured or made engagements with about 14 sub-counties. And then did Kayunga 3, and we didn't do the other 3 because it has 6 sub-counties. And so far, that's what we did in terms of grassroots engagement. And we continue trying to mobilize the resources because they are quite, it's one area where they see a bit of a challenge, because you cannot tour all those sub-counties unless you're able to mobilize adequate resources to be able to do that. So that's where we're going to focus this year, 2023.
And General, just focusing on finances, because this first segment of the show, of this conversation with you, how does Alliance for National Transformation plan to become sustainable, especially since you're talking about the struggles of finances and you're saying that's the focus for 2023? How do you plan to do that in 2023 that is different from 2022 to make it sustainable as a party?
We just have to keep communicating with the population, because not only that we need the finances, but also from our understanding, building parties which are strong and which can be depended upon by the population is when the citizens themselves are able to finance those parties. And also in the nature of financing, when you get many more people contributing in small amounts, it is better than when you get like 1 or 2, 3 individuals who put in lump sums that can run an organization. When you scan all over the world, even the African continent, for example, if you have a party and you have only 3 financiers, even if they finance it to millions of dollars, at the end of the day, that party cannot be independent to pursue the lines that it wants to pursue. Most times, as they say, whoever pays the piper calls the tune. But when you have got citizens contributing, if I normally use this as an example, if you have got 100,000 Ugandans financing any particular party of their choice, and they are paying 10,000 per month, you are talking of 1 billion shillings per month. And a party like that would be strong, because 1, nobody is going to be calling the shots, because nobody, 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 individuals who are financing it. And therefore, that in itself has got to be a culture, and we'll keep at it, because there are many things we want to change in this country. Most of them are hinged on changing the culture itself. One of the things that need to be changed is the understanding of the citizens about their future, about the governance culture. There's no way this country will be turned around unless parties are well organized. There's no way parties are going to be well organized unless they are funded. And there's no way they are going to be independent of any control, internal or external, unless the citizens themselves are the ones who fund those organizations. People would have to understand that, and we're not going to get tired. We'll keep at it. So fortunately, we keep on building the numbers. We've got just a few thousands who keep on contributing per month in small amounts, whatever they are able to afford. If a person is able to afford 5,000, that's what they pay. 10,000, that's what they pay. And we'll keep at that until a point when we know that the culture is changing. Now, the unfortunate thing is that now people are used to being given money by the parties themselves, which is quite strange. I don't know in which country you can ever have such an experience, leading a country into a state of independence for the citizens to do whatever they can do within the governance space. And it is not something that is so far-fetched, because we know that within the culture of giving, the people give to weddings, they give to when there are funerals or burials. If someone passes on, people will put up WhatsApp groups, and within a day or two, they'll have raised 10 million, 20 million, for burial. Weddings, the same thing. People go to churches, they give money. The others give 10%. Those who go to mosque, some give zakah every so often. So the issue of giving, people are able to give, but they give to other areas. I don't know what influences that people are able to give to weddings, they're able to give to, funerals, they're able to give in churches, they're able to give in mosques. But when it comes, the most critical thing in their lives while they're on earth, which is the politics, which affects people's day-to-day lives. If it is going right, things will be right, even in terms of the endeavors of different people. If politics goes wrong, you'll be messed up wherever you are. So we cannot, pass at a personal level, I'm not yet sure why people are not yet able to make that link that they must invest just as much as people who put money into churches, for example, 10%, or give donations. Most of them in the from the spiritual angle, whether it is in the Christian churches, whether it is in the mosques, most of them are preparing themselves for the afterlife, But there's life here on earth before people go to heaven. They must live here on earth. So they must invest, as far as I'm concerned, in the vehicles that will make their lives much better while they're here on this planet Earth. So we'll keep at that so that there can be change in the mindsets of people, which can lead to many things. Because if a party has got disciplined leaders, and they are honest, and they have integrity, and they are transparent, they'll put money to good use, they'll show the accountability of the monies, and that also helps, because if a party cannot manage resources well, there's no way that party is going to manage the national resources once it is in power,
And General, thank you very much. Even as we conclude the resources and the Alliance for National Transformation, the projection for 2023, you have talked about weddings, you have talked about funerals, how people raise money for all these things. Why should a Ugandan give his money to the Alliance for National Transformation? I know ANT is a value-based party, but why should a Ugandan be driven to give money to the Alliance for National Transformation? What do they see, or what should they expect? I know accountability is something you've mentioned, but why should they give their money?
We would like people who would invest in Alliance for National Transformation are those who would be convinced by the message we give. One, that values are critical to governance, because there is no way. Two, that people who desire to see change, we are hoping that they want to see qualitative change. That is our hope, because change is change. There are those who may be focused just on the exit of General Museveni and his group without caring about which other group comes in. That's also something that people can focus on. But we focus on change, which is going to bring a state of breaking out of the vicious cycle in which we've been for the last 60 years, because it's not the first time now that there's going to be change. And for us in NT, we know that change is inevitable. Our main focus is to ensure that there is qualitative change. That's why all these engagements we make is to attract men and women of integrity, people who want to see that when there is any team of leaders in power, that they'll be focusing, one, on transparency in the management of national resources, in justice, the justice system. So it doesn't matter what position you hold, it doesn't matter whether you have money or you don't have money, but you are all equal before the law. To build a culture of constitutionalism, to build a culture of justice. Also to ensure that we focus resources, because the moment you have a team of people who are disciplined, then they will know how to manage those resources in putting them in the critical areas of need, like in Uganda now. You have to focus on education, you have to focus on health, you have to focus on agriculture, because those three, quality education, good health, and nutrition for a population, would be focused on the quality of the human capital. Human capital is at the core of the development process of any country. We have seen countries who invest in the human capital. once it is quality, of a quality that is needed to engage in the transformation process, that those countries have managed to transform themselves, even when some of them didn't have natural resources. Look at countries like Japan, look at countries like Singapore. But even when you have natural resources, like we do have, we have seen even when African countries have got natural resources. But if there is no investment from at the technical level, the capabilities to run the economy, to run health services, to run educational services, but also the aspect which many people don't pay attention a lot to here in Uganda is because technical education is one part. The other part is, even if you're a professor or a PhD holder, are you a man or woman of integrity? When you're in an office, are you going to put the resources at your disposal to good use? Or are you going to convert it to your own personal use? So we look at those areas, and of course, a number of areas that would have to concentrate resources onto, like infrastructure, road infrastructure, energy, to look at how to put in place the foundation on the basis of which people can prosper in terms of enterprise, those who are in agriculture, those who are in manufacturing, those who are in the services industry, to work on things like rail, to work on things like urban planning and implementation, the things which are needed, because we have got a population now 45 million people, which is estimated in the next 25 years to become about 100 million people. A city like Kampala, by the time we hit 100 million people, most likely would be maybe 7, 8, 9, 10 million people. If you don't have a disciplined team of people who are going to invest in transport infrastructure, for example, in the cities, mass transit systems, to invest in good healthcare, which I've already talked about, good education, and also jobs for the youth. If you don't have discipline, all that can be done. The implementation, because we have got many people who can say so many good things, like they have said in the last 60 years. But the biggest change has always been at the level of implementation. And that's where we come in, where we keep saying values, values, values. You can have change, but any group which comes in, if it is not value-driven, you just won't get any different results from what we have seen so far in the last 60 years. And therefore, we would like to hope and believe that the Ugandans who are catching on the issue of values, because to a large extent, people think that it is something which is so peripheral, almost as if it shouldn't even be talked about, but it's at the core of the transformation process. There's no team of political actors who's going to take power in this country when they are not value-driven, and you think that they are going to, for example, stamp out the corruption that we have got, which is at, at frightening levels. It simply won't happen. And therefore, would like those who believe, like we do believe, to invest their money into the organization. Qualitative change is not going to happen by accident. Change will happen, any change. I don't know of what nature. But if it is going to be qualitative change, it's not going to happen by accident. It must be conscious, deliberate, and systematic actions by people who are in an organization like we are in ANT. So we'll keep communicating that message over and over and keep on building the numbers until we have got an adequate number that is able not only to finance, but also able to engage in party activities. Those who have got expertise in training, they can offer that. Those who have got expertise in policy formulation in the different areas, they contribute that. And then we can turn around this country. I mean, it's so shameful that all of us complain from morning until evening. You hear on radios, you hear on social media, social media platforms, and you get more out of 10 people. You get those who are skeptical about any good happening in this country. There's that category. You get many others who are so frustrated and they are complaining all the time. And the people who say, yes, in spite of all the problems we are facing, there is a solution. Those are the ones who want to build. Keep building the numbers. That's how society changes. Everywhere, all over the world, people who have acquired the levels of development that they desire to acquire or achieve, starts with the mindsets of those who are at the core of the organization that will be leading that transformation process.
Thank you very much, General. And I see the messages coming in thick and fast too so far there, and others that I received that we'll be commenting on in a short while. But General, let's switch our focus to Serere. The Honorable Ali Salaso will be running as a candidate for Serere County there. Your thoughts on this, and especially looking at how divided now Serere looks, especially looking at the government coming out to back the son of the late Honorable, but also the former candidate that was running on the NRM ticket also running here. Serere seems to be divided. Do you feel this is the right place for Honorable Ali Salaso to come in there? Because she says she's an elder, she should be advocating and giving direction on where things are going. And your thoughts on her candidacy in Serere there?
We hear of the efforts within the regime, the party in power, NRM. Now they are maneuvering to get out their candidate whom they had, who was holding their flag, to put in the son of the late member of parliament. They've been doing that many places. I think they did that in Omoro, if I recollect well. It looks like the same thing they did in Soroti. So it wouldn't be anything new in Serere, and that is their business. How they run their own party is entirely their business. The only issue that would certainly want to communicate to the people of Serere and the whole country, I mean, whatever failures, all the failures that the NRM has, is not because they are short of members of parliament. They have got a majority, they're actually a staggering majority. However, I would not understand why any constituency, like in this particular case, Serere, that one, they would not vote for Honorable Ali Salaso because they know her. She's a straightforward leader. She's someone who will tell them what she believes to be correct. She will communicate with them as she has been doing ever since she's been in the politics of Teso, first starting as a woman member of parliament for Sorit constituency, and then district, and then eventually going to Serere. You know, she's the one who's going to speak truth to power. You know, we have got a parliament where there are 300 plus members of parliament from NRM. They don't speak. Actually, when you inquire, you find most of them, when they have got anything sensitive to speak, they pass it through either independents or they pass it through the opposition members. So when you have got a member of parliament who is a former member of parliament like Honorable Ali Salaso, and she runs, and you know that she speaks truth to power, she has integrity, then we would like to believe, as we are going to try and talk to the population, that they should send her to parliament to speak for Serere, but also the issues at the national level, because you know where we are at as a country, there needs to be voices, credible voices that can speak not only about issues of the constituency, but about national issues. Parliament has degenerated to a point where people are almost going to lose trust. But when you have key people there, and they normally need not be so many, but who are bold, who are not petty, who are able to focus and know the issues which affect the whole country, the issues which affect the region they come from, the issues which affect the districts and constituencies where they come from, and they're able to speak, they give hope. And this is a time within the country where we need leaders who really give hope. Most of those who use a platform like parliament. So we hope that the population in Serere County will share that view with us and be able to send her to parliament. We are not naive. We know what the regime has degenerated to, more so considering elections like Kayunga, like Kasese, Busongora North, I think, Omoro, and recently Soroti, where the regime, and it started from 2021 elections, where the regime has taken a stance that they simply announce a person who has lost. And therefore they say, you got caught. Of course, they follow up those who petition courts. And they've got ways how they've been manipulating the court, the judicial system. This country is really down on its knees. And every opportunity that there is, we need to salvage it. If people want to give hope to this country, to shine light where there's darkness, when there's an opportunity of this nature, even those who are in NRM, those who may subscribe to NRM as a party, but care more about the country than the party, because that's what it should be. Normally, when you're in politics, what comes first should be the country, the party next, and then yourself as an individual third. If we have a number of those who think in NRM and they see the crisis we're in as a country, at the voting level, in Serere, for example, and they massively shifted and voted for Honorable Ali Salaso, even when the regime tries to manipulate the process. There is a point where they are not able to manipulate. So we go in there in faith, and we'll fight, because we are not naive. We've been seeing what has been happening in the past, but neither can we give up. This is our country. And those of us who believe that we can keep building whatever challenges we meet on the way until change happens, we'll keep at it. There's no way we can be frustrated. One, that's what the regime wants. General Museveni and his group have been operating in a manner to cause the population to become so frustrated and so disenchanted to reach a point where they simply give up. We won't give up. We'll keep fighting until change happens. Because in the first place, they are not God. Whatever they think they can do, even when they keep putting off things which are so outrageous. But at the end of the day, they are not God.
General, sticking to Serere, even as we wrap it up there, you have, on the numerous conversations you and I have had, even when people have called you out on what is General Muntu doing, what is Ant doing, and you have come out to say we are building the structures of the party from the grassroots, and that's where you started from. Why do you feel it is time now for you to come out and be able to run as a member, to have Honorable Alaso to run as a member of parliament now? And what difference do you hope to see her do, God willing, if she goes through and goes to parliament? But also, you have spoken about the underhandedness of the regime. How do you hope to navigate these waters? Because we've seen it in Kayunga, we've seen ballot staffing, we've seen them declare and push people to go to court. How do you hope to, in that threefold question, why now? What do you hope to achieve if she gets in parliament? But also, how do you hope to mitigate the challenges or some of the scrupulous ways that government would be doing underhanded things like ballot staffing and naming candidates on their own there in Serere?
First, Honorable Ali Salaso is the leader of the party. You know, when I ran for presidency in 2021, I had to relinquish being a national coordinator. She is the national coordinator. She comes from Serere. It would also have been very difficult for her not to run in that very constituency where she comes from. It's unfortunate that their MP was lost through an accident. And therefore, one, that's her being the national leader, would have been party leader, it would have been very difficult for her not to run. And then when there's another open constituency somewhere else, to ask another person to make the necessary sacrifices. This is a kind of sacrifice, by the way. Going into these by-elections is a sacrifice, because it is like you're going into a battlefield. We know that. We have seen many by-elections that have been taking place. So first and foremost, we have to lead by example. And therefore, in that regard, it is a form of sacrifice. Two, it's also an area where we know that we have done work, because one of the districts where we did work before 2021, one of them was Serere, and we did grassroots work, and that's why we were able to get about nine councillors at the local level. And therefore, we'll keep building on that. If we didn't have a candidate who'd run, it kind of can weaken at a psychological level the members of the party, as well as the elected leaders. Because some of them, they are few wherever they are. And if we don't have leaders at the national level who go in and we fight whatever challenges we are facing, it can cause the other people down there to think that, oh, if you're an individual around here, if we are facing challenges and difficulties, you have no chance. We don't operate from that mindset. In Alliance for National Transformation, we don't look at the circumstances around us. We choose to do things not because they're easy. We choose to do things because we believe they're the right things to be done. And whatever challenges that we face, we don't care about those because we know that unless you engage, there's no way you're going to change the circumstances around you. We operate from that mindset. That's a mindset that leads whoever becomes successful in this world, whatever endeavor they are, whether it is in sports, whether it is in business, whether it is in the military or in politics. You never look at the circumstances within which you're operating, however difficult they are. You do analysis and you find that there's something right that you need to do at that point in time. You go in, you keep doing it until you succeed. And that's the mindset we go in all these activities we go into. And therefore, we're going to go into Serere. And she's not a foreigner to Serere. She's been there for quite a while. Many people know her. And we are going to use the advantages that there are and go in and fight our way. We are going to go in, we walk by faith and not by sight. So just go in and fight it out and see the outcomes of it. If it's the will of God, we will get through.
Thank you, General, on that one. My final question, I know that the voter register will be put out towards the end of this month, towards somewhere in the early of next month, February there, we'll have campaigns there. What message will the national coordinator, as Honorable Alice Alaso, be saying there, and will you be there with her, passing on this message? What message are you taking to Serere for the people to be able to give you their vote?
There are specific, of course, specific messages in regard to Serere. I mean, some are unique to Serere, others are uniform, in comparison or in regard to other rural districts. Serere, the biggest challenge, of course, they have is in what the rural subsistence farmers face. One, the agricultural extension schemes are not operating. Financing, backup from the agricultural department in terms of modernizing the areas that they are in, those who would be in animal industry, those who would be in crop husbandry. Markets, also in meaningful interventions in terms of helping them to go into agro-processing. Two, those who are involved in fish in fishing on Lake Choga, they still are facing a problem of being harassed on the lake. That's a problem that has not been resolved yet in that regard. Three, unemployment of the youth. That's not only in Serere, it is countrywide, but in this specific case, it refers to Serere as well. The cost of education, the cost of health. In the last campaign, we were talking about establishing a national health insurance scheme. If there's anything that is a big challenge right now to Ugandans, wherever they are, urban or rural, or whatever, it is the costs of health when someone gets sick. I simply can't understand how does someone pay like 5 million when he or she is a subsistence farmer? And many of these cases are in millions of shillings. Even the lowest paid, like women who go to give birth, I don't know how much in Serere they require for cesarean section. Because that's something natural. You cannot say, I'm not going to get pregnant. And when you get pregnant, you don't know whether you're going to give a natural birth or you may end up having cesarean section. So that's something that you can't easily plan for. And therefore, in many areas, it ranges. It starts from 500,000 to 1 million. Where would a peasant get 700,000, 800,000, when they need money of that nature? Those are issues that we want to keep on addressing. And of course, the cost of education. Some, who are in UPE is a big challenge. UPE, they say it's free, but it has a cost. It is going to be a heavy cost to the whole country. But the young people who go through UPE and then end up in USE, and some of them are able to somehow maneuver and end up in university, even when you meet them and you compare them, you give an interview with a kid who has gone through private schools from kindergarten, primary, secondary, HSC, and university, you clearly see that those who have gone through UP and USE, many of them may not be able to get a job. So those are things that need to be rectified. And therefore, to rectify them, we need to keep on promoting men and women of integrity into positions of leadership. That's why we would need people like Honorable Salasu, at least in regard to Sere, to go in there and raise that voice and keep on building the numbers. The situation is not going to change by itself.
General, thank you very much. And
of course, there's also like the local, I've not been there recent, I have checked it out before we go. The areas like road networks, I know that the local governments which are in charge of that, they don't get adequate funds from the budget to work on the road infrastructure. I don't know how it is now in Serere. Tesa used to have very good roads, even when they were all-weather roads, not the tarmac. I don't know the state in which they are right now, but I know most districts don't have adequate resources to be able to maintain the roads. For some areas, water provision. You can imagine in even areas, you go to places which are so near lakes, they don't have water provision. That's also another issue that they do face. Water for animals, water for home use, and also those who would, in dry season, want to use water for irrigation. More so those who are near water bodies. Those are issues that need to be addressed. They cannot be addressed unless you have got people who are disciplined. That's why we keep talking about this so that people can understand that ANT is a party that if they keep on promoting it, wherever there is a chance, it's a party that will give hope to this country. As a party with adequate preparation that can lead the transformation of this country. And that's why we are focused.
My last question, and this is a question on that. You know, and we know very well, we have seen Kayunga, we have seen Hoima, we have seen what happened to actually Honorable Paul Mwiru in Jinja there. The underhandedness of government to be able to deliberately win an election at all costs, whether it's stuffing ballot papers, whether it's getting voters from another district. How do you hope to mitigate this? Especially, you have a very good message, but when the rubber hits the road, it's a whole different ballgame. How do you hope to mitigate this as ANT in Serere?
Yes, the state of elections 2021 and now the by-elections. The by-elections are worse than the 2021 election, and the by-elections are worse than what used to happen between 2016 and 2021. I think the regime definitely knows that it is in a very, very weak position. And therefore, they don't want the momentum which is built like in 2016, when the opposition won like 3, 4, 5 different areas, started building momentum for the opposition. They want to avoid that. 2, they have got their own schemes. Some of them I'm not going to talk about here on TV. We will keep them to ourselves and we'll work on ways of how we can scatter these fellows. One thing is that we have never gone into these elections because we believe they are going to be free and fair. No, we always go in these elections believing that we can work and motivate the population and we can organize and overwhelm them even when their intentions is to cheat. And we're not going to give up on that. We just have to keep fighting, because that's the nature of how changes happen. You never reach a point where you give up, because if we give up now, what do we do exactly? For us in ANT, that's the path we want to keep focused on, and we'll keep fighting. You know, we can't afford to give up. We do what we can do as human beings. We do all things which are necessary to be done in terms of organization, in terms of planning, in terms of execution. The rest we just leave in the hands of God, because at the same time, we're people who are believers. You know, I may give you an example. You know, there was a story, those who read the Bible, a young shepherd boy who went and found there had been a challenge. There was a giant, you know, Goliath, and he had challenged the armies of Israel. And everybody was terrified. Saul the king was there, the whole army was there, because the challenge was that whoever would fight Goliath, and if he defeated Goliath, then that side would have won. So there was a state of paralysis until this young shepherd boy showed up, and he understood the nature of the challenge, and he believed in himself. And that's the difference that was between him and the army, which he found completely paralyzed. Because the army and the king were looking at the size of Goliath. David was not looking at the size of Goliath. No, he believed he could take him out. And that's exactly what he did. He said, who is this uncircumcised Philistine that dares the armies of the living God? The rest is history. You know, so looking at circumstances can be scary. And I think that's one of the most scary things I see in this country. People look at the army, they look at police, they look at General Museveni, who is going to manipulate every situation to his favor, and they give up. But give up to do what? To do what? You just simply can't give up. You have to keep fighting. Show up, organize, plan, and execute. And you keep at that until change happens.
Okay, General, I have a few messages before we dig into our last areas there. Someone comes through, I see these on Twitter. Someone goes through and says, Isa Abidi Abel says, we wish Aunt the best. Thank you very much. Jimmy Ocham says, we should take action and end with the talking. These guys never get moved by our words. The last one is Mutunji. He says, I'm a councillor here in Wakiso district. I came on a certain party ticket, but I love Ant and the general's ideology. And am I welcome to the party? What is the process for me to get there? Lukanga says, it's this time around in Uganda, we need action to unseat Museveni, then all these things will happen systematically. But as long as we are here talking, 50 years master plan is done, and it is up to a 100-year master plan, okay? Bruce goes on to say, I wish all Ugandans could gang up behind General Muntu, and he will redirect this country. Uganda needs a person like him to rectify what went wrong. Finally, Honorable Paul Nsubuga says, good evening. The brains behind this space, if I may raise my concerns to the President Muntu, if I may ask, as we all see that Honorable Alaso is tested and experienced, has General Muntu tried taking steps to convince fellow opposition party leaders to speak with a similar voice to go and vote for her? I'll let you respond to those, and then we'll be able to switch our topic of discussion there.
Yeah, we've got colleagues who are doing outreaches to other colleagues in other parties to discuss with them the possibilities that there are in terms of this by-election in Serere. Yes, and there's a colleague who was talking about talking, that we should just stop talking and go and act. Yes, I understand if talking has no specific intention, if talking is not focused. But talking which is focused is important because it's part of building. Because when you look at the whole situation that human beings face, the biggest challenge, whether it is in business, whether it is in the military, whether it is in politics, the biggest challenge human beings face is a mindset problem. There are many people who can't make any advance in life because they are trapped because of their thinking. They look at a situation and say, this is an impossible situation, and therefore they don't advance. And the only way you ever change mindset since the beginning of time is through talking. Because when you have discussions, either on radio or on TV or on social media, there are times when someone sees or hears something that can unlock their minds, something that they had never considered. That's how mindsets change. Other times when mindsets change is through practice. Someone engages in something they are trying to do, it doesn't work, and if there are people who are able to learn from failure and then continue again, that can change through experience. but largely it is through talking. Why do you think that Muslims every Friday go to mosques and preach? And all Christians, well, not all, on Saturday, the seventh day, every Saturday, they go to church and they preach. Then the rest go on Sunday, and they are preaching since the beginning of time. That's simply talking. That's how influence is done on the human mind. And therefore, the biggest challenge we face, because even when you are going to act, how are you going to act unless you act in concert with many other people? How will many other people know what you think, or how will you know what they think unless you speak it out? So when you speak out and you find that, okay, out of 1,000 people, 600 are on the same path, then the 600 organize themselves, and then they can disperse the 400. So speaking is very, very important. Otherwise, how would you go and start organizing? You must keep speaking. And therefore, when you speak, the people know that, okay, we are on the same page. We are moving along the same track. And then from that point, you organize yourselves and you pursue whatever you want to pursue. And that's why we keep speaking. Otherwise, when you look at the circumstances which are in this country now, yes, I agree with you. There is a temptation to simply keep quiet. Keeping quiet is not a solution. Because even if you want to go and do whatever you want to do in terms of fighting the regime, you must speak it out. And therefore know how many people believe in the strategy, for example, you want to follow. And I would like to thank all those who appreciate our message, those who appreciate Alliance for National Transformation. Please, let's join hands and keep building. Don't be scared about numbers. You know, I normally see people who get scared about numbers. I've never bothered about numbers in my life. Every time I've reached a crossroad, there are many crossroads I've gone through in my life. I never look at numbers. I always do analysis and find out, is this the right path to take? The moment I'm convinced that it's the right path to take, then I follow it, even if we are few. Because when you're on the right path, then you keep building the numbers. I mean, if it was an issue of numbers, then we should also all be in the movement. You know, but that's where the numbers are. By the time we separated, they were even more than what they are now. They've kept on diminishing, you know. So don't be scared of numbers. Just do your own analysis and say, what is the correct path to walk? Which is the party that I should join in, which I believe is on the right track? The moment you are convinced about that, join that party and give it your all. If it is on the right track, it will have an impact. Like I know, if there's anything I know for me as an individual, it will have an impact because we're on the right path. We're doing the right things. We may not have the numbers yet. Numbers will come because right now what we are targeting mostly is even the leaders, because you can have numbers, yes, even in terms of population. But if you have got the core team of a party who are rotten, like the movement, see them, 300 plus members of parliament. So why is there this mess? So any party which is going to change the future of this country meaningfully in a positive way, it must build the critical number of leaders who are going to become the spearhead for the move to transform this country. That's why we are focused as Alliance for National Transformation. Because change a country, you don't need hundreds of thousands of people, not millions. You don't even need thousands. And as far as I'm concerned, anywhere at a national level, you have 200 leaders who are good. Then at the district, you have a support team at the district level. Like in a district, you have about 10. You will change the country. You change the country. Once you're all committed in what you believe needs to be done for the country. You don't start with the masses of people. Look for quality people first and foremost. The numbers, who are the supporters and the voters, eventually come. And there was also someone who was saying, you know, this thing is so, I think he was talking about the regime, the nature of the things that they are doing. I sensed some kind of frustration in terms of what is happening and what we are meant to do as opposition. I know there are many Ugandans who are getting so frustrated. And to a large extent, one can understand. But what we'd like to keep on asking the people, more so the elite, the educated, we can't afford to give up. There's no society that has ever reached wherever it wants to go or to reach without having hope as the guiding spirit within them. But the moment you lose hope in life, you basically start dying. I don't see how we can lose hope in spite of what is happening in the country. The abductions of people, these numberless vehicles, the exercise they've been conducting, it's just so many things which are done with impunity. You know, the corruption stinks to high heaven. You know, many things are really going wrong. But in spite of that, those who want to shape the future must look at that and say, okay, it is the very reason why we must be more determined than ever before to change this environment. Because if there are no people who step up and not allow themselves to be frustrated, how the situation is changed? It just simply won't change by itself. And therefore, it's a task that all of us should engage in, of maintaining hope. And the people who are educated have got all reasons to be hopeful. Why? History shows, even in the worst kind of situations all over the world, in places where there have been, dictatorships, change always happened. So that's one thing that people who are exposed, I can understand a peasant in the village may never know that, oh, there was a dictatorship in this country. It was there for such a long time. Eventually it ended. But people who are educated know that on all the continents, whether it is Asia, whether it is Europe, whether it is America, the Latin Americas, here in Africa, but change always happens. So what does that mean? That there's nothing that is permanent. There's no dictatorship that can be permanent. However vicious any regime would be. We've seen many examples in the past. Just saw what used to happen in here, close by, without going to places like Iraq. No, here, close by, Zimbabwe, what used to happen. I recommend people who can access a book called 2 Weeks in November. Very interesting read when you see what happened in Zimbabwe. The change that ousted Mugabe and brought in Mnangagwa. The other places of the African continent where change has happened. The Compaore, who was in Burkina Faso, Mobutu here, close by, and many other dictatorships that we have had on this continent. But change happens. And therefore, that's why we must keep on talking and raising more and more people to become hopeful, and more people to be engaged, and more people to commit, and we'll keep fighting until we change this situation. Yes, Timothy.
Yes, General. Thank you very much. Apologies, the network went off there. But let's continue our discussion and also continue to have the discussion and also keep your messages coming through on the spaces there. Just drop them in the chat so that we can continue to have this discussion. General, let's switch because we have a few minutes to be able to end. Let's run to the tail end of our discussion. General Kagame on Monday came out to say the FDLR is in Congo and they're being backed in that area to be able to overthrow his government. And one of the things he insinuated is that he would not have Congolese refugees there, but a statement from government changed. What's happening in Congo? Can it spill over into Uganda? And should we be concerned about the insecurity in the DRC? Because it seems to be picking storm going forward.
The negative things like the insecurity which has been going on, but of course it's been going on for a long time, more than 30, 40 years in Congo. The most unfortunate problem we've always had in Congo since the times of Mobutu is that there have always been a weak state. Therefore, it has never been able to take control of the whole vast territory that Congo is. The positive thing that I notice is the decision by all the East African countries, one, to send a joint military force, but two, to engage in diplomatic endeavors to resolve the problem. My hope that that can eventually bring success in a situation where there have been endless unresolved issues. Why I would like to hope that the combined effort of East Africa could resolve that problem, because it is only logical that all these 7 countries should be looking at how to build their economies. We have got growing populations. All the 7 countries have got growing populations. Congo is a big country with huge amounts of resources, natural resources. And therefore, a stable Congo would be a boost to the East African economies. Congo, out of the 6 other partner states, 5 of them share a border with Congo, starting with Tanzania down south, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and South Sudan. So you can imagine when there's a stable Congo and East Africa works in developing infrastructure on the whole eastern front, the whole eastern territory of Congo, right from where they share border with South Sudan down to where they share border with Tanzania. And they have got interlinking roads and rail. Fortunately, Tanzania is on track. They are developing a rail line from Dar es Salaam, which is going to end up in Chigoma, and they have going to run another line, I think the border of Burundi and Rwanda, which it seems will now give an opportunity to Congo to tap into that. If we were as focused here in Uganda as Tanzania has been, and we were able to run a rail link from Kenyan border to Kasese, then Congo in that case would tap, or through to Arua, Congo could tap into those lines into its own territory, and of course road networks and energy. The moment you have got linkages between Congo and East African economies, that would help in boosting all the economies, and therefore enabling these 7 countries to raise the necessary resources to invest in our economies with expanding populations. So why on earth would they sleep and not concentrate on solving a problem of that nature? My hope is that that's how they are thinking. My hope, we just have to keep waiting and see, because I don't see anything which can't be resolved in that area once you have a combined effort of 7 countries. I don't see what would be difficult to resolve, because the other problem that causes instability there is one, weak controls in terms of government presence, but also a struggle over resources. But if you stabilize the area and exploit the wealth of Congo, Congo itself being able to do that, it will be able to cater for the population of Congo, because I think they have about 80 million plus now. It should be the largest population now in the 7 countries. So they also have to they should be interested, I believe, in having a stable eastern region of their country. And of course, also they also need to solve the issue of identity, because there's also the problem of identity in that area. I wouldn't understand why I have a region which is looking forward to integrating, and then people are fighting over identity. I just simply wouldn't understand.
And General, let me ask a question that really baffles me. We sent an army into Congo there to fight the ADF, but we are having issues and people being arrested here as ADF. So, and we also have the government speaking, because when we look at Westgate, we see ISIS spoke when they had bombed the place. We've seen Al-Shabaab speak when they're in Somalia. Why does government continue to speak for ADF and not ADF speak for itself? Because M23 speaks for itself in DRC. Why is government continuing to be the mouthpiece of ADF and continue to arrest people? Or there is something that we're not seeing?
I really don't know. You know, there are many things which this regime just does, which one can't understand. One thing, though, that they are clearly a group, by whatever name it would be, but I believe it was ADF in Congo that was trying to use Congo as a base to destabilize Uganda. I have always been supportive of the presence of UPDF in Congo, in as long as they keep focused and remain on the mission that took them there, so that they don't end up being diverted by going into looting, like in the 90s when the UPDF went there. If they remain focused, it would help in, and now with this other effort of the East African combined force to be able to stabilize Eastern Congo so that it doesn't become a source of problems for the neighboring countries. In regard to that, I understand that fully. But as to whether they use that as a cover to do other things, which they are capable of doing, I don't know. We just have to keep on investigating and finding out so that when they are off the mission, or if they use their presence in Congo to do other things unrelated to the mission, then we need to keep on exposing them and you know, condemning whatever acts are not consistent with the mission in Congo. Well, also, too, one thing I know, at least from a military point of view, guerrilla, you know, fighting is not easy. It's quite complex. One, you are not fighting a formation which is defending territory. Like in this particular case, if ADF decides to disperse and then infiltrate the country and maybe try to carry out a sabotage mission, they can't do that. Meaning you have 2, 3, 4 people crossing a border is not something so difficult. You can even cross a border 1 kilometer, you know, within 1 kilometer of an army that you are fighting, you know. So that's why, you know, the regime really needs to be more focused on. Anyway, to be honest with you, Timothy, in much as I support the presence of UPDF in Congo, there are many things which are challenging our country, and all of them are rooted in governance. So even as UPDF fights to stabilize Eastern Congo, there are many other issues, and all of them are rooted in the bad governance. So the overall solution is change. And that's why those of us who are in the opposition have to work day and night to ensure that we have got a well-organized opposition, so that anytime, when there is change, that the opposition, once it gets in, that doesn't mess up things like NRM itself has done, and those before NRM, you know.
And General,
really at a critical point in our life as a country.
My last bit about the tensions between DRC and Rwanda there is some of the statements, especially very sensitive statements that have been made by President Kagame, where he's talking about ethnicity and putting one ethnic group over the other. Doesn't this leave us in a delicate balance of where we don't know where an implosion could happen in any part, and how could that affect Uganda, especially him saying the Tutsis or the M23 are fighting for their own ethnicity, but goes on to say the FDLR is part of the DRC army. These ethnic lines that he's trending, won't they cause us disaster as a region?
That's why my hope is that the East African leaders, the 7 of them, once they sit down, they'll be able to look at the implications of all this. Because I don't think there's any of the 7 countries that does not have ethnic groups which spread across their borders. You go on the Kenya-Tanzania border, there are Maasai on both sides. You go on the Uganda-Sudan border, there are Acholis on the Ugandan side, there are Acholis on the South Sudan side. Then you'll find like Madis, there are those in Uganda, there are those in Sudan. Kakwas in Uganda as well as in Sudan. Then on the Congo side, you'll find like in the areas of Nebi, you'll find Alus who are in Uganda, who are also in Congo. Even actually in West Nile, Upper West Nile, you find, I think there are some Kakwa who are in Uganda, others are in Congo. Then you go down, as you go down further south, you find around Kilimanjaro, Rwenzori. You have got the Bakonjo on the Ugandan side, and you have got Bakonjo on Congo side, though they are known as, under a different name. I think Banande, I think, in millions on the side of Congo. Then you go down further south, you get in Kisoro area, you've got Ugandans from that Uganda side. They are Bafumbira. They are known as Bafumbira, but basically who have got same language, same culture as the Banyarwanda in Rwanda. Then you go in Rwanda, you find Banyarwanda in Rwanda. And then on the side of Congo, you find Banyarwanda on the northern side in the areas of Masisi, who are known as Banyarwanda. Down further south is South Kivu, they are Banyamurenge. They are known as Banyamurenge, but basically same language, same culture as Banyarwanda. And then you go to Burundi, you'll find Burundi on the Burundi side, Burundi in Congo. Tanzania is different because there's a lake, I think, all along the whole stretch. So I don't know in Tanzania whether there are any who are different. But on the Ugandan side, you can find Ugandans on both sides and Tanzanians who are the same ethnic groupings. So when they are discussing the issue of how to advance the whole community politically, economically, they must look at these issues because none of the current leaders, even those who will come in future, was in Berlin, or even those who passed, the African leaders on all those 7 countries. None of them was in Berlin. Berlin just sat and they crossed lines, said the Uganda is here, Kenya is there, Congo is there. So they have got to resolve that issue. When you find people who fall in the same ethnic group, but across the border, what do you do? Because that's the whole argument, I think, in M23. They are saying Banyamurenge are ethnically linked to Banyarwanda. But in terms of citizenship, they are Congolese. By the time Berlin conference was held and they cut those lines, they were already there in the Mulenge Hills. So in that regard, what do you do? By virtue of the fact being known as ethnically Banyarwanda, can you say they cease to be Congolese? That's where the argument is. The 7 leaders must sit down and resolve that.
Thank you, General. How do you foresee the end of, especially the crisis that is in DRC? Because it has a spillover effect in Uganda. Either we'll have refugees here or we'll have cells of ADF here as claimed by government. How do you see us resolving it? Would separating the country or breaking of the country, just like Sudan and South Sudan, would it bring an end to the animosity within this country?
I don't think that would be a solution because how many will you separate? Because even internal within these countries, there are internal challenges. The thing is to ensure that one, the immediate is stabilizing Eastern Congo, so that once there is stability, then they can engage in discussions on how they can coexist and building the economy so that everybody can. Congo, and you can imagine, Congo is the largest, I think, if I recall correct, is the largest country or second largest on the whole African continent. Congo is larger than Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania combined. Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda's population, when you add them up, we're about 150 million. Congo now is at 80 million. But it's so huge. So the problem in Congo is not overpopulation. No, the problem is management. So if they're able to stabilize and then engage in economic development, they will cater for that population in a much better way than even any of the other East African countries so far, as far as I'm concerned. As I can see, the evidence is there in terms of the resources that they have. So the other countries have to work with Congo to stabilize it, to also the management issues that they must face and deal with. 3, continue unhampered in integrating the economies of the 7 countries, because we can easily get focused on the domestic issues and on the regional issues and forget that we have an existential threat, globally. Africa, every economic power is now focused on Africa. Europe, China, America. And in the world, they say you don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate for. So if Africa remains weak as we are, disorganized as we are, engaged in internal conflicts as we are, and not focusing on how we can organize ourselves and protect ourselves, we can easily be re-enslaved.
Thank you, General. I'm going to get into the feedback here. We have about 16 minutes to be able to close our conversation with the General. But General, let's come back home. A framework budget paper has been put before Parliament of 49.9 trillion shillings, but also looking at the economy recovery from COVID-19 and where it's going right now. Where do you see us right now? And where should the focus of the budget come 2023, 2024 be focused, and what priority areas? I know you mentioned some, you mentioned education, health and agriculture, but what priority areas should this budget focus on to be able to bring recovery into this economy?
The good thing is that the fuel prices are going down internationally. So I believe they also come down at the domestic front. But also when it comes down internationally, when we are buying fuel as a country, it means that there can be now breathing space, and they can therefore focus more on how they can deal with the other challenges that we do have. I've already mentioned education. It's an area really where they need to invest resources, and health. Health is really in a mess. There needs to be a lot of focus on health. And three, there's a lot of money now which is being targeted in entrepreneurship, but I think in a wrong way. But the amount of money which they're putting into entrepreneurship is significant. But I think they're using it in a political way, you know, because how can you go and throw a trillion Uganda shillings, like in this parish development model? You have not piloted. It's not the money which is the problem, you know, in most cases when you are going to start a business. There are many other things that need to be done. If you don't go on a smaller scale and get a few areas that you focus on and engage in training of the people who are going to be involved in different enterprises, engage them along the whole value chain in whatever they're engaged in, whether it is in livestock, whether it is in crop husbandry, so that at the end of it all, you're also going to be preparing for markets. And therefore, you study and know that, yes, now we have piloted maybe 10 sub-counties in the whole country. And then you look at the weaknesses within the model. And where you see weaknesses, you carry out corrective actions. And also you need to understand that areas of intervention, the more, if you keep on scaling up. So you move from 10 districts, you do corrections, and you maybe, like 10 sub-counties. And now you maybe move to districts, and you do like 10 districts. And once you know that you are now well prepared, then you can spread. If you get money, just send it out there. Maybe we just have to give it time and see. But engaging in enterprise is definitely something that is good. Why? Because the majority of the youth, 75% to under 35, is no way you can hope that they can come, for example, in public service. Public service reaches a point and it cannot expand any further other than replacements. And therefore, it is in the private sector where you can promote jobs. And therefore, if you also intervene in a manner in which you can start with people on a very small scale and work with them, build them to medium scale, out of those, you even have those who are going to go into large scale industry. But it must be planned, it must be systematic. What is being done is haphazard, it's erratic, there are knee-jerk reactions. But maybe those in government can argue and say, give us a chance. I mean, in 1 year, we will know the outcomes of that parish model. If it follows the trend as we have seen it in the last 5 models they have done and you don't see much, then maybe they will listen to what we are talking about. That's the way we would do it if we are the ones in power. Would definitely pilot, because we would be wanting to see success. But see, the mindset of these ones in power is that just give people money and they feel satisfied. They will know that we are doing something. You know, maybe just give them money and within 6 months they no longer have it. You know, how does it help?
Thank you, General. Let's get to some of the questions and comments that are coming in here. Chris Rock sends a message and says, I want to know why the ant leadership is always quiet till when they have their by-elections. That's one. Kasaga Regan Muwaje goes on to say, my name is Kasaga Regan. According to what I have heard, implies that I have been blinded by the light. I have been blinded by the light, okay? Finally, I choose ANT to be my political party forever, okay? He says, thank you, General. One more that I think I read when we had jumped off. Someone says, General, your former ANT supporters have become cadres to the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, and they work in her office. He names people like, let me not put the names there, but he names people there, and he says, is it true that they are on the secondment to make money for ANT? And what exactly is the relationship between ANT or you and Anita Among? So I think those are the questions that have come through so far. Unless there are others that come through, I'll be reading them. So, General, if you could please respond.
That one, of course, should be dismissed by with the contempt. I mean, how many are there? Even if there were 5, how much money do they get there in Parliament? Maybe if, for example, a worker there gets maybe 3 million. So how much money would be they contributing to the party? There's nobody whom we ever second. But at the same time, we're a party which is tolerant. People choose what to do. People choose to take their different paths. So we focus on the things that we want to do. I mean, if we are people who were believing that money comes first, look, I knew I was in politics. I was in command. I would have amassed a lot of money if I believe that it is only money that makes you successful in politics. You know, even when I left the army, I could have got involved in so many schemes that many other people engage in. We believe, us in ANT, that values are the most critical thing. 2, you have to be tolerant. Not everybody is strong enough. There's a point where people will reach the point and bail out. When they bail out, don't become enemies with them. You know, people make choices for different reasons. So if someone reaches a point and finds that they can no longer, you know, continue in the hardships that the opposition creates, and there definitely is hardship, and they branch out, let it be. Even when they are there, if they still are sympathetic with you, I don't see any problem with that. There are people who are in NRM who are sympathetic, who not only sympathetic, who believe in what we are doing in actual fact. I bump into so many people on the streets on a daily basis. You know, someone stops you, tells you I am NRM, but we believe in what you are doing. Now, they may not be ready to get out of NRM, but you're not going to make them enemies just because they are not joining you. If they are sympathetic with you, that's good enough. You continue doing what you are doing until change happens. That's what happens in life, you know. And the other question was, would like to thank the one who has decided to join NT. Karibu sana. We're on the right track. We will transform this country by God's grace. Have no doubt about that. And we don't have any, I don't personally, I have no relationship with Anita. We used to be in FDC together. They used to support the side that we were supporting our organization. She moved and she went to government, like many others who are in the opposition who went to government. I have no problems with them, but at the same time, I have no political relationship with them at all. We do what we have to do. Why? Because we believe that we are going to become a critical agent of change as NT in this country. If there's anything I'm so convinced about, it is that. So we are not hostile to people who are not with us, whether in the opposition, whether in the government, or even in the movement. Because at the end of the day, any opposition party which takes over would have to run a country, and don't expect that you'll have 100% support. You're going to have those who are opposed to you. So how do you handle them? Are you going to handle them as enemies? Absolutely not. If you try to handle them as the movement is handling us, then you also lost direction. So we must take the moral high ground.
General, one final
we take the moral high ground.
General, one final question here that comes in before I give you an opportunity to give your closing remarks, or should I say your remarks of the year 2023. Pius comes through and says, so why doesn't Ant believe in opposition unity? Just asking, maybe having General Muntu is wrong somewhere, but I beg to be corrected to understand why Ant does not support opposition unity there.
Is he still online? Maybe he could give us an example. Why does he think that we don't believe in unity?
Pius, if you could, if you're still online and you can be able to send a request to be able to voice your question and give especially an example that really covers what you're saying there, we would really appreciate that. But General, even... To
be honest with you, Timothy, if anybody looks at us as Alliance for National Transformation, we don't have any fight with any party. We don't have any hostility with the JEMA. We don't have any hostility with the FDC, even when many of us at the senior level were with FDC and we separated. We don't have any fights with the NUP at all. That's the beginning point of unity. So that doesn't come by accident, it's deliberate. By the time even those of us who were in FDC when we separated, we consistently kept on giving briefs to JEMA, to NUP. At that time, DP was not yet working with the government in a cooperation agreement that they signed. We also briefed DP regularly. When we started NT, we also did that. And we were telling them, we will come for any initiative to which you invite us. We will do, analysis, and we'll give you our own response. There's no party which has ever invited us and we didn't go there. We'd go, listen to them, go back, do analysis, and write back to them our position. How else would you build unity? We believe in principled unity. Everything that we do it in a measured, systematic way. And where we start from is to ensure that there's no conflict between us and any opposition party. That one, by God's grace, we have managed. When we invited to any initiative, DP invited us before they started a cooperation agreement with, we went there, we were with JEMA. Eventually, when a red card was starting, they invited us, we went. Both cases would report back to them, our position. When NUP has been under challenges, we meet with them. We have discussions, we do our own analysis, we tell them the option that we think there are, and we stop at that. So if there is anything that is built, if it's consistent with our approach, we go along. For example, if there is a strategy, for example, for civil disobedience, in that regard, we normally tell them, yes, we understand that it's a legitimate, it's a legal way of expressing discontent and also organizing for regime change. We recognize that, we appreciate it. We are even supportive of it. But we always told them, we will not join it because we want to concentrate on building our capabilities at the grassroots. However, we encourage our members of the party at an individual level, whoever wants to engage, they can engage. We have no problem with that. We're always open. We never hide. Whatever we believe in is what we present.
General, finally, General, yes, your remarks for the year and especially to inspire Ugandans on what kind of leadership we have in 2 minutes before we close.
We want men and women of integrity in building Alliance for National Transformation and at the different levels, right from village, parish, sub-county, constituency, district, and the national, to prepare ourselves for that time when opportunity knocks and we would be ready. Because as the saying goes, that success happens when opportunity meets with preparation. That's why we keep preparing. I'd like to thank you, Timothy, for hosting me. I'd like to thank all the colleagues who have sacrificed their time to listen to us on the different social media platforms. May God richly bless you.
So thank you, General. Thank you very much for your insights there, and also the topics we have discussed here, and also the message you have given to every Ugandan as we go forward in 2023 there. To all Ugandans, we all have one country and we need to believe in this country, and we all need to work towards seeing a better country moving forward. From us to you, God bless you. Have a fabulous weekend, and I pray that you have a fruitful 2023. God bless you.